The holiday cheer in the air. We'll bring you some more holiday music in just a little bit. Mike Barrett in with a kind of a jolly smile on his face with the sunshine this morning, although it's cold. Mike, good morning.
Yeah, a little chilly. And I promise it's just coffee and creamer. There's nothing else in there. No holiday spirits are with me at the moment. So,
Well, maybe not in the liquid form, but the holiday spirit is within. Isn't that what Ray Charles says?
I think so. Yeah. So cold morning. Yay. Mother Nature this year has decided to really mess with us, right? Give us a little bit of all the extremes in a very short window of time. But you know what? The good news is at least there's some snow on the ground. I like the snow on the ground for Christmas time. That makes the Christmas lights pop. I hope it stays. I don't know what they're saying about that possible nor'easter coming up our way, but you know how it works in the Northeast Kingdom. We could get a dusting or we could get a foot. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, well, I still got to try to get my snowblower started. Mike's in with this week's edition of Good Policies, and I'm not the smartest man in the room. You know that, Mike.
Neither am I.
And when it comes to insurance...
Wait, there's only two of us. Man, that makes us both really problematic. Go ahead.
Nah, you're lying. I don't know what limits are on insurance when it comes to automobile and stuff like that. Let's try and define that.
Yeah, so actually, with limits of insurance, it's important to know what limits of insurance are. And when it comes to automobile limits, and I'm not talking about liability limits, which we've talked ad nauseum about, and we will continue to talk about as we go forward, but really talking about values, right? Limits and values. So if you want to start with auto, let's start with auto. Let's talk about maybe an antique or a classic car policy where you're saying that your classic 1969 whatever is worth $25,000. Well, if it's worth $25,000 at the time of loss, it's got to be proven that it's worth $25,000. And, luckily, a lot of these antique companies will stay with an agreed value. So it's very, very nice and clean because they've kind of pre-approved that value. So you're not going to see them go, well, we could get this car for 17 over here. So here we go. So that's kind of a cleaner cut example of how you won't see a lot of mess or fuss over a limit. But when you start going to actual property like a homeowner policy, a renter's insurance policy, a business owner's policy, now we're talking about limits of insurance that are not stated value. It's a limit. All right. So the example I'll give is, let's say I insure your home for $350,000, and that's because I came back with a replacement estimate telling me that that's really where it should be. And you go, well, that's fine, but I really like to insure it for $500,000. Most companies don't have a problem insuring you for more, but know that when a loss occurs, they're only going to pay you what it's worth. So that limit is not like hey, here's a check, walk away, happiness, $500,000 check. It's going to be, look, we were able to rebuild your house. And we're talking, you're insuring today for a loss that could happen 10 years from now, right? So many things could seismically change. One that I don't think would happen is that a lot of values go down. But what if they did? If they say, hey, we could rebuild this house, and we will rebuild this house, and probably be about $260,000. Well, that's an awful lot less than what you were insuring it for. So you essentially were over-insuring.
So basically, the takeaway on this, and I'm going to use a car thing to start out with, okay? Like they've got Gas Monkey Garage. They've got Dennis Collins going around the country buying all of these old cars at X number of dollars. So just because you think a 1967 Corvette with matching numbers on the block and such is worth $75,000.
Right.
So with a home, I can understand that. That made sense the way you explained it, okay?
Yeah.
So you're insuring a home that's worth $350,000, but Joe wants it worth $500,000. If the insurance company says, yeah, okay, all right, we'll give you $500,000.
Of course they will. You're paying them more money.
So Joe Blow could, in a not-so-good world, decide to do something to that home and hopes of getting the $500,000. So they're protecting basically.
Well, yeah, they're only going to pay. So insurance is indemnification, and indemnification is to get you back to whole, to get you back to where you were, right? So while limits are a factor here, it's really about getting you back what you had. So size, approximate square footage, the condition of the home, all, they want, like kind of quality new is kind of how it's going to work out. Business, personal property, and personal property are two other great examples. Give you an example of a homeowner policy. Let's say you're insuring a house for, let's say, $200,000, and by default, you have up to $140,000, which is 70% of 200, for your personal property. Well, that's not going to say, like, if you have a total loss, they're not going to cut you a check for 140 and say, here you go, buy what you need. That's just the most they will pay. They will certainly pay less if they can, I don't want to make them sound evil and bad, but it's all about indemnification. They're going to help you get back what you had, and if it takes all $140,000 to do that, excellent. It sometimes cannot be enough, but many times it's probably more than you need. You think of somebody who has a $500,000 house. Do you think they really have over $300,000 or $400,000 worth of personal property? Probably not.
Sounds to me very similar, because my pea-sized brain here, very similar to, I'm going to liken it to a gift card, okay? So you've got a gift card to XYZ. That gift card's for $100. You can buy whatever you want.
Yeah.
As long as it's under $100.
Yeah, as long as you can't go any higher.
Is that a fair comparison?
Yeah, I mean, you can't go any higher, obviously, because that's the limit. They're saying this is the maximum limit that we will pay, but there's certainly going to be many opportunities where it could be lower. If you have $1 million liability policy, somebody wants to sue you for $1 million and it goes through court, maybe they're only going to settle for $350,000. The companies, it's in their best interest to make sure they're not paying max limits every single time. Liability being a little bit of a different example than property. Property, again, they want to indemnify you. They want to give you back what you had at a fair process. But you also need to be your own advocate through that process and make sure you're getting what you need and had. But don't just ever assume that limit is all yours. I think that's the example I wanted to most hammer on this morning, is it's not an automatic.
Well, let's connect this to it here as we get ready to wrap it up here. So every year, it is very good advice, and should be rudimentary for most folks, to do an assessment. Okay.
Oh yeah.
We talked about this when we were talking about insuring personal belongings. Do an inventory of what you've got, what it's worth, and then see if your coverage is within those guidelines. Because you can buy something through the year. You may buy a brand new smart refrigerator, and that's whatever,
thousands of dollars in many cases. Yeah.
So that would be more value than you had the previous year.
Right. And really the ones who need to pay the most attention to it, because they're the ones that have the most option to change that, are those who have renter's insurance policies. Because many people want to get in with kind of an entry-level limit of maybe $10,000 or $15,000. Well, very quickly over time, you accumulate things. And so you may be at a point, or maybe you have a significant other now, or maybe you're married now, and now you still, you have all these other factors to consider where you're going to want to increase that. So it's important to kind of be aware of that situation. Make sure you keep in mind special personal property like computers, jewelry, collectibles, maybe have different opportunities or ways to insure those so that they're not limited in coverage.
So like your smoke detectors, once a year, check your insurance.
Yeah.
Tell them how to get in touch with you.
And the rule is, if you shake your house upside down, if it falls out, it's personal property. If it doesn't, it's the house, right? And there's a lot of stuff that's going to fall out my house that I don't want back. But if you want to get in touch with us, you can call us at 748-5224. We're on Portland Street in St. Johnsbury, online, thebarrettagency.com, Google, Facebook, and YouTube. Just look for Barrett Insurance Agency.
Thank you, Mike. Good Policies, Tuesday mornings with Magic in the Morning at 8:35. Brian Setzer Orchestra. Happy